Hey folks, it's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, otherwise known as the Shaky Key, back with another video. In this case, I'm looking at a park activation using the G90. So I'll give you an idea as to what the park is like, and we'll give you my thoughts on the G90 going forward. So what I want to say before we start is the activation was at the Merrickville Blockhouse, which is a very, very nice spot, number CA-4874, located about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Ottawa, depending on which part of the city you live in. It's a small park. It's not a big one. It's right on the water, which helps, but it's a very narrow one. Lots of picnic tables. Gets a lot of use, especially around the lunch hour. You have all sorts of people walking through there. You've got the pets running through there and everything else. And like I say, fairly narrow. So it would be more like an urban park and not one that you would really want to try and set up some type of vertical antenna or any type of antenna where you've got a lot of coax cable and that type of thing. So when I go there, and this was my second activation basically at that park, I always use my standard, which is the MFJ 20-meter ham stick on the roof of the car. So that gives you an idea. Now, what are we looking at with that park? It's a tough one to activate. Like I said, you can't use a big antenna. It's just not going to work in that park. So if I look at some of the numbers for that particular park, right? It's been a park now since 2019. So going back a few number of years, 6 years. There's only been 18 successful activations in that park. So over 6 years, 18 activations, one of which was mine. And as of yesterday, 2 attempts at activations. So basically 20 times people have tried to activate that park since 2019. And I forgot to mention, there's a fair number of municipal power lines there as well. Now, in 6 years, as far as CW goes, there were only 150 contacts over 6 years. A lot of the time, it was anywhere between 2 and 6. Then there were 2 people. I'd imagine one who probably came up on one of the boats, because you get a lot of American yachts come in that area. He did pretty good. He had somewhere around 99 contacts, but very, very few normally when we're in there. So my last time there was April of 2023, which was a successful activation. That was single sideband. There was no Morse code used in that particular one. Now keep in mind, when we activate parks up here in the Great White North, we really rely on our American friends because there are not an awful lot of Canadian operators. And I would think most of the activations that I've done, I either have no Canadians or I might have one other operator. There's a couple of very good operators down in Atlantic Canada, and I picked them up in different activations. None on this particular one, though. So we do rely on that. When conditions are bad, we rely on our signal getting into the States. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to let you see this. I'm going to show you the setup, a little bit about the park. I'm not going to show you a whole bunch of me, playing Morse code, but I will get into after that my thoughts as to some of the things I could have done better and some of my thoughts on the G90 as far as using it for parks on the air. So let's look at what happened, and I'll fill you in as we go. Now, as far as the activation goes, the idea was to try and get maybe 2 to 3 hours in. It really varied. I was only there because my 4-legged friend was at the groomer, which is down that way, and I figured by the time he was ready to come back, I probably had at least 2 to 3 hours somewhere in there. So let's try a quick activation. Band conditions were not the greatest, but that's normal at this time of the year in the summer, so that's not a big deal. You just have to live with it. As far as the weather goes, it was one moment nice and clear, next minute heavy rain, which is off and on all day long at that point. So when you see the video when I get there, it's actually really nice. And then shortly after that, really shortly, as I was getting ready to set up the hamstick and that, it started to rain again. So just one of those typical days around here that we get sometime in sort of the late summer moving towards fall. Now, this was the first time I was going to use the G90, so for me it would be an interesting experiment because I usually use my IC7300, similar to what you see in the video, except in this case it's the G90 that's there. So I'll give a very quick summary as to what happened during the activation, and then I'll get into my thoughts on using the G90 for the first time. Let's go.
Okay, so we've arrived at the Merrickville Blockhouse. We'll give you a quick view as to where we are and what we're doing. There's the blockhouse. You can see we have a nice little picnic area here. We've got the locks. The other side, if we were to go through those trees, there's actually an anchorage over there. You may just be able to see one of the boats that is parked. But it's a beautiful spot here. Very peaceful. You have public washrooms. Lots of restaurants nearby as well. So all good. So as you can see, we're now sitting in the car. This is a very quick setup, a very easy setup. I just have a hamstick and one of the MFJ hamsticks up on the roof. In this case, it's the 20 meter. There's the G90 sitting there on the dash. Looks awfully small compared to what I used to see with my IC7300 sitting there. And you can see we've got it hooked up to one of these batteries. It's a Brute battery. Excellent. I've got two of them. I've never got a complaint about either. So there we go. We're comfortable. It's set up at the moment. We're going to be doing single sideband, so we'll go from there and let's see how everything turns out.
Now, as you saw in that short video, the G90 fits quite nicely on the dash, which is definitely a big bonus for it. At that point, the weather had started to change a bit, so just in setting up and so on, I probably lost about, I'm going to say 25 to 30 minutes ducking in and out of the rain and so on, but you know, that's the way it is when you do this stuff. So as I just mentioned, it was set up for single sideband. I called probably close to half an hour, pretty close to half an hour, I would say. Not a single contact was made. You know, it's just one of those things. So at that point, I switched over to Morse code or CW, whatever you want to call it, and tried. And looking at the time and knowing how little I had left, I figured I better get moving. So went into Morse code, calling Xiegu POTA. I probably did about 5 to 10 minutes before I got my first contact. And then I had a bunch of them come very, very quickly. So I made 5 contacts in a very short period of time. One of them out well over 1,000 miles away. So I was quite pleased with that. So it shows, you know, if the CW does get through, probably when conditions are such as that, and probably better than single sideband for the same, you know, amount of wattage out. Anyways, we did it. I got 5 contacts very quickly, roughly 4 to 5 minutes apart. I was hoping to get a few more in, get that last bunch in, because for whatever reason, the CW was starting to roll in, but wasn't to be. I had some big station tune up directly on top of me, which meant I had to shift. And well, you know, once you shift and you go through that, you're going to lose time and contacts anyways. So I did that, and then, you know, text on the phone went to say your boy is ready to be picked up. So it was time to wrap it up. So an unsuccessful activation, only 5 contacts, all CW. But for me anyways, with a new radio. So what I want to go through this is give you my impressions, the pros and cons. You know, I'm an old guy here. I've got these eyes, these ears. Might not be the same as some of you young folks who are out there looking at the same screen and listening to the same radio. So let's see what I think about the G90. Now the G90, as you saw in that video, it's great size, I have to say. I appreciated the fact that it was that light, was able to fit very comfortably on the dash. Obviously, it would be very easy to fit that onto any picnic table. There's not a lot to go with it. But yes, it definitely good. As far as working it goes, I found, for me anyway, so don't forget, this was my first time using it. I find the menu items a little bit difficult, requires a fair amount of practice before you go out in the field, which in my case, I had none. All right, it was actually literally being used for the first time. So I'm assuming even with the single sideband, some of the issues I had there, maybe it was me and some of the setup I had done. I'll find out the next time I go out because I'll be playing with it a lot more before then. Size, yes. Weight, yes. Excellent. The power of the 20 watts, it was more than enough. Certainly in CW, it had more than enough for that. Don't forget too, I'm doing this here roughly noon hour during the week, so you don't have as many operators out there or online. I generally try and do my activations sort of mid to late afternoon when the band conditions for 20 start to get a little bit better, and I tend to get more people coming home from work and so on. But the power was fine, certainly for CW. There were no problems at all. As far as the screen goes, for these old eyes, I find the screen small. I really have to sort of lean forward like that to look at it on the dash on occasion to see what was what. Um, the screen itself was fairly crowded, with information. I sort of like a bigger screen, with these eyes, why not? But it did the job. You could look at it, you might have to peer at it a little bit with those old eyes, but you could read what was on the screen, see what was happening. Uh, Overall, okay on that, but I would prefer a bigger screen. I can just imagine this radio with, a screen, say, a half or twice the size. Now that would really be something. Other things, let's see, the speaker. Now the speaker I found very weak. I don't know if others have that. Certainly in single sideband, even when I could pull, people in who I could, hear someone going back and forth, not on parks. I didn't hear any parks, but people having a conversation in single sideband. I found that I really had to concentrate. I had to lean a little bit closer to it. So, just one of those things. Was it something that would stop me from buying it? No, because I think, especially if you're doing single sideband, get yourself a headset that works. And I didn't bring one with me. I probably should have, but I didn't. And I do have a good heel headset that I use certainly most of the time with single sideband. This time I didn't bring it, but that would be one very strong recommendation. Bring a headset with you. I mentioned the screen. Those are really about the only negatives that I can think about. The biggest one for me was the size of the screen and the speaker. Other than that, I think it's a great radio. I don't see why anyone would not get one, certainly for the price. They're exceptionally competitive. Now, if you're in Canada and you're on the Canadian eBay, not the American, you got to be careful about that. If you're on the Canadian eBay, these G90s go for a great price, and delivery from China, you're probably going to get it faster than you get from Canada Post. So you're looking at maybe 2 weeks, which is not bad. And if you're a senior and you want to do parks on the air, you don't want to spend a lot of money. This is certainly one radio for you to consider. And another very strong positive, I just remembered I should have added before, but I'll add it at this point, was the tuner. My goodness, did it do a fabulous job, both when I was up in the single sideband portion of it and also down lower into the Morse code end of it. It was excellent. Just press that button, wait for whatever number of seconds it takes, and there you are. So my SWR, and it was literally the hamstick was thrown on the roof, and the whip part was shoved in quickly and tightened because it was raining quite hard at that point. So there was no fancy adjustments done, but it brought the SWR down to 1.8, and I'll take 1.8 anytime. So very robust tuner. Definitely, that's probably one really big strong point for that particular radio. Now, as far as any other equipment used goes, I'd like to keep things pretty basic. I still do a paper log. I don't want to get caught up on trying to do computers and everything else. So I keep it simple. And it was simply done on here, standard clipboard, nothing fancy. Right? That's what I wrote everything down on, done in pencil, which is the way I like to do things. So that was that. As far as the CW side goes, obviously I was portable, so I used two different portable keys. So the one that I used the most was this particular one. You can hold it either way you want. This is the POTA Key Mini. Lovely navy knob. I must say, I got really into that knob. It was excellent. The other one that I tried out as well was this particular one from CW Morse. It's also got that navy knob. But what I found between the two, and don't forget holding them because you're on that clipboard, it's not magnetic. So I was holding them while I was sending Morse code. I found I kept going back to the POTA key. So for me going forward at this point, my option would be to bring my full size key and use that because I figure out I had enough room there to use it, sitting on my lap on that clipboard. But I would probably use the POTA key, POTA Key Mini key. And don't forget, in Canada, we don't get access to the entire POTA key inventory. So once again, if you're on the American Amazon site, as an example, they have a bigger choice than we do here in Canada. Keep that in mind. And the big difference in prices, which is the other thing. Now, as far as the park goes, a quick review of the park itself. It's in an absolutely beautiful spot. There's some historic ruins not too far from it. You have, especially in the summer, you have a lot of the big yachts which come up from the States, which very often tie up there before they start working their way through some of the locks. The town itself, a large part of the town has been kept as it was, so you're really looking at a town for the most part from about the 1800s. Beautiful buildings, very, very nice. They've done a lot of work to keep a lot of the historical features to the town. The main street, which is where most of the action occurs, the main street has lots of little boutiques, restaurants, that type of thing. So if you want to come down and spend sort of a day, do an activation, then do some shopping with the family, it's a good place to go. There's some very good restaurants, and including my favorite, which is the Goose and Gridiron, which is a really nice pub with great food. So you can't go wrong as far as that goes. Like I said, the park itself, it does have public washrooms, but keep in mind that's when everything is open. I wouldn't count on public washrooms there when it's out of season. But both are good. So there you go. The G90 plus Merrickville Blockhouse. A couple of quick reviews as well. On that particular day was an unsuccessful activation. It's the way it goes sometimes. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching. It's much appreciated. Please subscribe, like, share it, comment down below, whatever you want. And as I always say, we're here to have fun. It's a hobby. Let's not get bent out of shape over it. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor, Quebec, the Shaky Key, wishing you a great day.